Abused or neglected children need someone to advocate for them as they go through the foster care system. Joining us today on Newsmakers is a representative from Jasper County CASA, Skylar Thompson. Thanks for joining us today, Skylar.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. So tell us what CASA is, or what it stands for, and just a little bit about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates, and our mission, especially here in Jasper County, is to train and support different community members to become a caring and consistent adult for kids who have been abused and neglected and that are in the foster care system.
Okay, so they're like guardian or of sorts that's appointed by the court, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we have a guardian ad litem appointed by the court, which is an attorney in Jasper County. And then a CASA is kind of a little bit different, but we support the guardian ad litem in all of their duties and also give the court an extra opinion and recommendation.
Okay. And so what type of training does a volunteer have to go through?
Yeah, so our training is 30 hours for pre-service. So the way we do it here in Jasper County is we have 15 hours in person. So it's 5-week course plus a one week orientation, and then 15 hours online through homework. So after an advocate is sworn in through those 30 hours, we do 12 hours of continuing education every year for our advocates to make sure they're up to date on all the current information that they would need to protect and advocate for those kids.
And what does that training involve?
So it's basically a dive into the child welfare system, also trauma, abuse, and neglect. We look into domestic violence because that's a common factor. We look into a little bit of like substance abuse, and then also child development because that's a huge factor that these kids are going through a big traumatic that can mess up their development and cause delays or issues.
And is that from physical abuse or just the whole, it runs the gamut?
I mean, it could be physical abuse, it could be emotional. The trauma, there's such an array of effects that we don't even know that happens with it, that it could be affecting, you know, maybe how they're learning in school or how they're making friends socially or making connections and relationships.
Okay. And so the volunteer then, they learn about these types of cases, and then like, I guess, how do they take that training? What do they do with that training?
So we always tell advocates, you know, we can only teach them so much, and that's started the training because each case is going to be different. So after they're sworn in, we give them a little snippet of what we can of the case, and if they're willing to take it, then they have a volunteer coordinator like myself, and we've got 2 others as well to help walk them through the case itself. So we try to go through what knowledge like we know, and then as issues come up, we teach them and talk to them about that. But thankfully we have like Children's Division who is amazing with helping us work through a case and talk to us about stuff that we might not know.
Okay. Have you ever had a volunteer start the training and then they're like, this is too much, I don't think I can do it, and then drop out?
Yeah, it definitely takes a special individual to be able to do this for kids. And if volunteers aren't able to make it through the training, we completely understand. It's a lot mentally to take in to work with kids who are abused day in and day out. So a lot of times we'll encourage them to maybe volunteer with our events or reach out to another community organization that if they're still wanting to help kids in care, they can help through a different way.
Oh, well, that's good. They might not be able to do it individually like that, but maybe as more of a group.
There's still different ways that they can help out there. You know, we'd love to have all of our advocates help with our organization, but, you know, if it's not the right fit, we completely understand.
Sure. So does a volunteer go with the child to court? What does the day in the life of a volunteer look like? Yeah,
so it can look different. Our cases can be anywhere from, you know, like 1 kiddo that's a baby to, you know, 5, 6, 7 siblings. So usually the younger kiddos don't necessarily go to court. The older kiddos, maybe the teens, like to go to court because they like to be able to be involved. But what it would look like for our advocates is to just visit them and be a person that's there with them. We know many of our advocates like to go to like sports games or musical concerts for the kids. They like to just be able to be there and hear from them because these kids are going through a lot of chaos that wasn't expected. So they visit them in their foster home to see where they're sleeping and how happy they are and how the environment is to them. But they also, you know, attend these team meetings to tell the team this might not be working out, or this is a really great placement for the kid. We're really loving it here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And do they make recommendations on whether or not a child goes back to, say, a natural parent or goes up for adoption? Like, did they get involved in all of that?
Yeah, so all of our advocates write court reports that are submitted into the court, so it's under consideration. We try to definitely look at the team and tell the team exactly like what we're thinking. We even ask the kids, depending on their age, what's something that you would like the judge to know, because it is a big decision for a judge to make in a kid's life about, going back to a bio parent or going back to a adoptive parent or something. We had one kiddo, I've heard the story that, she told him, I want the judge to know I like soft tacos. So
that's pretty
making
funny.
sure that the kids' voices being able to be heard in this tough time that they have.
That's pretty great. So how many children are in your program right now? How many children do you assist?
So right now we are serving 190 kiddos, which is a fantastic amount of kids that have advocates in the system. Unfortunately, though, Jasper County does have anywhere from like 500 to 550 kids in care each night. So our goal by 2024 is to have as many kids, or basically all the kids, to have an advocate.
Wow. And how many cases per volunteer? Can a volunteer take 2 or 3? Can they are they only assigned 1? What is that? How does that work?
Yeah, so we try to give them just one, because we'd really like all their time and attention to be focused on, one kid or a sibling set, just to make sure that kid's getting the attention that they need, and maybe getting the voice heard that it might not have been getting heard before. But we do have a couple advocates who are retired and go-getters and ready to take on a couple extra ones.
Yeah.
So we have a couple that have 2 or 3.
Okay. So that, say the volunteer they don't want a particular case. It may be wrong age, wrong circumstances. Do they get like their pick, or how does that work?
Yeah, so after an advocate's sworn in, we will definitely tell them when we have a case come up, we'll say it's a sibling set and their ages are, 10 and 11, and allow the advocate to hear, just that much information. We don't give them full information of the case because that would be a confidentiality violation.
Oh, I gotcha.
But at least giving them the opportunity, they are more than welcome to say, I can't take this right now, or, I would really like this. So we've got, like I said, 550 kids in care, that we can definitely find a kid that would fit with them.
And does it go on a needs basis, like the more egregious the situation, child abuse, say, are you more likely to take that case as opposed to a child who maybe is just is neglected rather than abused?
Yeah, so we get all of our referrals through the juvenile office. And I think a lot of times they're picked out through if they are a little bit stickier. They think that this kid didn't have a lot of support system, or, maybe I've got some extra questions that it would be answered if we had an extra person with the kid. So I don't necessarily say that, we're with the toughest cases, but maybe ones that need an extra hand.
That makes sense. So who can be a volunteer? How do you vet a volunteer? What does that look like?
Yeah, so being a volunteer, you have to be at least 21 years old. You've got to pass 2 of our background checks, and you have to have a high school diploma or equivalent.
Oh, okay. So say a kid in college has extra time, or maybe wants to do it as a service project for a class. How long do these cases last, or is that something that college students could even get involved in?
Oh, for sure. We've got, I can think of 2 advocates off the top of my head that are actually college students or just graduated. Awesome. So they have loved doing it. We do ask that they make a 2-year commitment, just because that's about the time frame of a case here in Jasper County. It's been a little bit longer just due to COVID and some court throwing in, different issues with it. But about 2 years is what we ask for our advocates. So if, a college student, like say a junior, is ready to go for it and plans to be in the area for a little bit, we'd love to have them.
Wow. And that'd be great for kids who are interested in social work, and working with that type of population.
Yeah, I was actually a social work student here at Missouri Southern, and that
Awesome.
would have been a really great opportunity if I would have known about it at the time.
Well, maybe this will help then. So how many of your volunteers, well, I say how many, I saw a picture, and it appears that most of them are women. is there a way to recruit more men to do this? Because I think that they would be well suited.
Oh, for sure.
Well.
We are definitely trying to get more of the men out there because, especially some of like the young boys, it's nice to have, you know, a nice woman in there, but they might need a strong man figure for them that's there and helps them just be who they are. So we're working to get more men recruited. So if there are ones in your life that you know, we would strongly recommend them applying because we'd love to have them in class. Yeah,
because it's somebody said something about a service heart, and women seem to be more in line with that type of discipline. But I know a lot of men who have, you know, are great dads and, you know, are about ready, that like empty nest syndrome, that
need an extra project in their life. We would love to have it. We've got a couple male advocates that are just fabulous, absolutely fabulous, that they work with the kids. They're there for the kids. We've got one that drives all over the place for one of his cases just to be able to go see and attend things for the kids. So we'd love to have more guys.
Well, and what is the age range of children who are in or who have CASA volunteers?
So we serve anyone from like babies up to 21, because kids can actually be in care up until 21 if they choose to have some of those additional services. So we can serve all the way from birth up to 21.
And so what, for an infant, what does a CASA volunteer do for infants?
It might be going to just some of their doctor's appointments and seeing how like developmentally they're going along with it. Maybe looking at seeing if they needed to get into a daycare, or seeing them in the daycare environment, how they're reacting with others. And it could just be holding a baby. Like they just need that attention and they need that love in that moment.
And is that in addition to like the foster care that they're in, or do the CASA volunteers work with the foster parents?
Yeah, so our CASA volunteers work with basically everyone that's in a kid's life. So they work with the foster parents. They work pretty closely with the caseworker on the case to make sure they're getting all the information they need. We have several CASAs that go to school, and with schools opening back up, we're able to go in and eat lunch with kids again. School counselors, therapists, like everyone in a kid's life.
So if a kid wants to just tell a secret and they don't want their volunteer to tell anybody, how does that work?
So we are all mandated reporters, and we teach that pretty strictly in our training. And so we've even helped coach some of our volunteers about how you explain telling the kiddo, I'm really glad you trusted me with this secret, but I have a friend that's going to help you because this is really sad and I want you to be okay. And so explaining to kids, you know, you might want me to keep this secret, and I'm glad you trusted me with it, but we've got to tell someone because you've got to be safe.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, because I would think that would be, you know, heartbreaking for a kid to think that it's completely confidential and then tell something and then they feel betrayed. But if it's presented to them in the right way, I think.
Yeah, we try to, you know, foster that safe and caring relationship for kids, just so they know that, you know, while they might be changing placements or changing schools, that this is one person that's going to stick with them through a lot of this, that they're going through a lot of these challenges.
Do the kids get moved from foster home to foster home? Is that a thing?
Unfortunately, yeah. There's many different reasons kids can get moved around, but I believe last I checked, the average in Jasper County is about 4 placements for a kid while they're in care. So a lot of times these placements comes with school changes, and there's just a lot that's forgotten. You know, maybe they left their you know, little box at school, and a CASA volunteer can go back and get that and make sure they get it to their new school, or, you know, they had a favorite pin that they left at school, being able to go and do that for them.
So how many volunteers do you have?
So after our last class that was sworn in, we have just over 100 sworn in, which is really exciting. I believe we've got about 90 that are active with cases right now.
Wow.
So.
And are you taking volunteers all the time? Is there a new class? Like is it like a certain times of the year, or is it at any time? Anytime.
We will always take applications for it. We're always prepping for our next class. Right now we've got a class that's going to start June 22nd. It's Wednesday mornings from, I believe it's 9 a.m. to noon. And then our next class will be starting in the fall, be Tuesday evening. So we're always prepping and getting ready for our next class.
And so where do you get your funding? You're a nonprofit.
Yeah. So we get a lot of our funding through VOCA, which is a Victims of Crime Act, and it's federally funded but dispersed by the states. Other than that, we get a lot of support from our community. Joplin is an amazing community. Jasper County in general is amazing with supporting through either foundations, individuals, stuff like that, that we're really thankful and blessed to have.
And so it's like businesses, partnerships, like what do you do with your business partners? Do they send you volunteers, help work events? What do they do? Or just donate money?
A lot of it is donate money. We've got several that do, help with different events. We just did Light of Hope, which was really exciting, and we had some volunteers come in from that. We have some in-kind sponsorships, like MSSU did donate their facilities for us. So that's kind of what it looks like. It's a lot of, financial donations, but also support just for us in general.
So talk about your new building. There's a building going up at 20th and Connecticut-ish?
Yes.
Somewhere in that vicinity?
Yep.
Talk about that building. How did that come about?
Yeah, so we've always wanted a permanent space. And they started looking probably back in like 2020. They were like, we need a permanent building to be able to support these kids and continue to grow. So our executive director and our program manager looked around at so many buildings trying to figure out where are we gonna be, what are we gonna do. Finally found the lot at 20th and Connecticut and got the crazy idea, let's just build it. Like, let's build our building, we'll do what we want to do with it. So we're extremely excited because our capital campaign funded all of it. We're able to fully do the building through our capital campaign with all of our amazing donors for it.
That's great.
Yeah, we are extremely excited to have this new facility.
And what will be housed inside there?
So we'll have all of our offices for our current staff, but we're also going to have like a big kitchen area. We're going to have our like a playground that kids can come in. We've got like a little quiet reading area for some of the younger kids that we can sit down and just read books with them. So it's mainly an area that's going to be able to let volunteers visit and connect with kids.
Wow. And are some of the companies donating their time and the building materials? Is that by donation or is that just in funds you've raised?
Most of it's through funds we raised. We're working pretty closely with a lot of like businesses in the area to help get, cost manageable so we could have a nice facility, but that's within a reasonable amount.
Yeah, because costs to build right now
it's pretty insane.
It is insane. And so talk about people can donate money. Is it just as important that they donate time?
I would definitely say so. Like I said, we've got 190 kids that we're currently serving, which is an amazing number, but we would really like to get to that point where we can serve all 500 kids that come into care. So, donating money is amazing. We absolutely love to have these funds to be able to support what we're doing, but donating time is awesome too, because you get to make an impact on a kid's life. You get to become like a caring and consistent adult that, they're really excited to see you and see you at games and be a person that they just bond with over that time.
Yeah, because I've been around some kids that were in foster care and were neglected, and the main thing they wanted was just somebody to hug them.
Yeah.
And pay attention to them.
They just need a little bit of extra love and support. They're going through a lot. It's chaos, it's traumatic, and a lot of times they just need that extra person to say, hey, let's go play a card game. Let's color. Why don't we go outside and throw around the baseball?
Right.
So definitely.
That's great. And you talked about legislation, VOCA. Are there any other laws or legislation that your group, gets behind or helps to organize for victims? Or?
We usually look at Missouri Kids First. They keep an eye on a lot of that different legislation that we, need to know, such as like residential or maybe regulation changes. But thankfully, National CASA puts out a lot of good standards that we keep a good eye on as well.
Okay. And talk about the partner agencies that you all work with. You work with the juvenile division and who else?
So we work with Juvenile Office, Children's Division, Jasper County Circuit Courts, Children's Haven. The list could go on.
Sure.
Lafayette House, different areas like school districts. basically everyone that could be in a kid's life or even in like a CASA's life for, maybe biological parents. We work with everyone that we can, because it's important for us to know the child through all aspects, to be able to help serve them in their best interest.
And I know it's emotional, like dealing with a lot of this stuff. I work for a law firm, and they, divorces and child custody matters, it's always just emotions. How do the volunteers deal with that? Do they get counseling for themselves, or how do they not get attached and want to take these babies home with them,
I think you're going to get attached in this one regardless. Even after some of the cases close, we know that there's still several CASAs that are still involved with them, because that was just a big part of their lives and the volunteer's life. But in general, each advocate is assigned a volunteer coordinator that we, are always there to help them process through. So if it's a rough team meeting or a rough, visit with the kid, they can always call us to tell us, I just need to talk this through. But we also do offer a lot of different opportunities for volunteers to be able to meet with other volunteers and build connections and resources, because, they might not be able to talk about it with their husbands or spouses, but them being able to sit down with another CASA and just talk about it is a lot better for them.
And there might be somebody who's already gone through that situation, and they can lend a
absolutely, or know a resource out there that maybe they didn't know beforehand that could share it with them.
Sure. And I think, are most of your volunteers elderly or retired, or
we've got all ages on there. We do have several that are retired, and those usually do take maybe more than one case, but we do have anywhere from college students up to elderly.
Wow. And talk about the volunteer portal on your website.
Yeah.
There was a lot of good information there.
Absolutely. So after our advocates are sworn in, like I said, they need 12 hours of continuing education. We do offer in-class training for them, but if they're not able to make it, we record those sessions or have resources on there. So a lot of them are, things that they might not know about Children's Division, or refreshers with Children's Division, but also looking at, new scopes of trauma, how cultural diversity plays in with the kids in care, stuff like that, where it's just good to have that extra information for them.
And is there a certain level of, maybe maturity that comes with it as well? Like the people who are more mature handle it better, or is it just kind of depends?
I think it depends. It's a very tough and emotional field to be able to be in with child abuse and neglect. It helps to have a higher level of maturity to be able to work with a team, because, we want to be the grown-up in the kid's life. We don't want to be another rotating factor for them, unfortunately. And if we have those lower levels, it might be difficult to be, a calm presence for a kid.
And if there's somebody who's watching that wants to volunteer, how do they do that?
Yeah, so online we have our website that you can apply online for, which is super exciting that we can get you set up. It's an application. We'll contact you later to set up an interview, and then after that we'll go from there. So, yeah.
Okay. And so do they have to go through the background checks first, or how does
it all happens
work?
At once.
Okay.
So whenever they put in the application, we'll get an interview set up, and at that time we'll send them the background check forms. We'll get them all the information that we need from them. So we'll do, it's an hour-and-a-half long interview approximately. Goes through a lot of different things to make sure that we're not putting them in a bad situation and make sure we're not putting the kids in a bad situation. So,
do you think that people who have experienced the foster care system in their past, or some type of abuse or neglect, do you think that they could lend a certain perspective to these kids? Like, it's not always going to be like this. You can overcome this.
We do have several that have had experience with the child abuse and neglect system, either personally through friends or other family members. And I think it's nice because it gives them that idea that, it's not always going to be like that, but we also do cautious on those volunteers just to make sure we're not going to put them in a dangerous or triggering situation for them.
Oh, sure. That makes complete sense. Well, I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us about this. And they're always looking for volunteers. I want to thank Skylar for joining us today. This is Newsmakers on KGCS TV from the Ruth Colpin Studios here at Missouri Southern State University, and I'm Bobby Pottruff. We'll see you again soon.
Well, some of the things you do as a CASA volunteer, for me, I've got teenage boys, so I'm constantly going to sporting events.
Making sure that those children have the things that they need educationally, mental health, emotional support.
The girl that I advocate for is a teenager. She doesn't have anybody in her life who wants to be there.
Frankly, just having somebody that's there consistently and can give them the support and maybe just the hugs that they need.
It's really important to me that I be the constant in her life, that she knows that I'm not paid to be in her life, that I have my own life going on, and that I am there solely because I care about her. So.
Once we learned the statistics about Jasper County and that on any given night there's 450 kids in foster care, and the fact that there's about 60 CASAs that would try to handle that, we were like, wow, we need to do something.
There is a very real need, and it's important, and it needs to be done, and it needs to be done by somebody, and that somebody in our little corner has been us.
How does it make me feel to know that I'm changing a child's life? It helps me a lot. Like, it makes me feel really good when I see the kid and I build that relationship, and when I walk in the door and they're like, hey Shahida, how's it going? It makes me feel really good. It makes me feel like I'm really making that impact in their life and that I'm really helping them out.
For training, I was so nervous the first day going into it just because I didn't know what to expect and how much training is done. Like 30 hours seems like a lot, but every week it was, I don't know, it was a time that I looked forward to because they really did educate me a lot. And although you can only be so prepared going into a situation, I really did feel like I was prepared.
I am a CASA volunteer because I want to see all children be happy and healthy.
I'm a CASA volunteer because I believe that every child's voice deserves to be heard and that they deserve to know that they're loved and that they're chosen and that they have a purpose.
You too can change a child's story.
You 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 can change a child's story.